This is Montana This Morning.
Good Monday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Our top story this morning, some Muscle County residents are now under evacuation orders as 3 wildfires in the area continue to grow. Anyone east of Queens Point Road, south of Harvey Road, west of Melstone Custer Road, and north of Alkali Creek Road has been told to leave their homes. The MY Complex fire is now more than 24,000 acres in size. It's made up of the Peterson Fire 12 miles south of Melstone, the Western Road Fire 7 miles east of Roundup, and the Muscle Trail Fire 15 miles northwest of Custer. Officials say the Peterson Fire is expected to move south due to extreme drought. Crews stayed in the area overnight to monitor its growth. And it is a similar story nationally. One wildfire in Northern California doubled in size over the weekend. About 30 million people are under excessive heat warnings and advisories, with several cities hitting record triple-digit temperatures. CBS's Laura Podesta has the latest.
Firefighters are battling the Beckworth Complex fire in Northern California, the state's largest wildfire this year. It's a combination of 2 blazes burning near Lake Tahoe that has destroyed houses, structures, and cars.
Those flames are big and they're hot.
Phil BURGARELLO quickly realized he wasn't going to be able to save his home.
You know, I thought it was clear, but the corners of the trailer started by debris, I guess. And it was just too much. I didn't have no water, nothing. I was pouring beer on it.
BURGARELLO injured his arm and lost 4 dogs while escaping.
I couldn't get them out. They couldn't see. The smoke was there, so I think they're gone.
Officials say more than 1,200 personnel are fighting this fire.
There's 3 main things that firefighters have to deal with when they're out there. It's the extremely critically dry fuels, extremely low humidity, it's only around 10%, and then the high heat and the high winds.
Extreme heat across the West is fueling dozens of wildfires while also setting high temperature records.
It's never been hotter. It feels like we're in an oven, yeah.
This weekend it hit 120 degrees in Joshua Tree National Park and 130 in Death Valley. Washington and Oregon set new emergency orders mandating access to shade, water, and breaks for anyone working outdoors after an Oregon farm worker died of heat-related causes. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
In Arizona, 2 firefighters died Saturday when their plane crashed while surveying the flames. Now it's time to turn our attention to even more weather, but this stuff closer to home. Like we said, hot here, hot everywhere, hot here and there.
Yeah,
So
that seems to be the word of the day. Yeah, hot, dry. Although we do have a slight chance we could see some rain a little bit later on this evening. Maybe a better chance tomorrow, and I'll explain why that's the case. So we wake up this morning, not a bad start. You may smell a little bit of smoke out there. We may have to deal with that as we go along today, and we're going to show you that as well coming up. 63 at the airport, humidity's at 48%. Winds in from the northeast at about 5 miles an hour. Let's go ahead and crunch some numbers. Yesterday, we were thinking we would be flirting with record highs. Didn't quite get there, but it was hot nonetheless. Got up to 98 degrees, a good 11 degrees above average. Now, we're not going to be as hot as today or yesterday today, but we're still going to be up to about 90. We do have this surface high pressure coming in from Alberta. That's going to actually push a little bit of cooler air in, but still, it's going to be quite toasty out there. Didn't get any rain yesterday for the month. We're falling behind in the hole now for the year. We're closing in on 4 inches in the hole. So we've got some work to do. Like I said, just a slight chance of rain maybe tonight, a better shot tomorrow, and that may be about it all the way through the weekend. We will take a look at that with that main forecast coming up here in just a bit, Victoria.
All right, sounds good, Miller. Well, thank you so much for those updates. I'll get to updating folks on more news.
Okay.
Thanks. As COVID-19 vaccinations continue to roll out across Montana, there's a trend taking shape. Yellowstone County is under-vaccinated compared to other populous areas. Now, health officials are switching tactics to reach those on the fence about getting their shot, but they also acknowledge vaccinating Yellowstone County is an uphill battle. Q2's Austin Amastoy explains.
And do you have to work tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. What time?
Aurelia Renfro has wanted her second COVID-19 vaccine dose for months, but has faced scheduling conflicts and pharmacy shortages. Luckily, the St. John's United worker finally found time for shot number 2 at a pop-up vaccine clinic at her employer's summer concert series.
And when I got the email today, I jumped on it because I needed it.
With the days of mass vaccination clinics in the rearview mirror, health experts say more community-based clinics like this one are needed to reach the unvaccinated. While Renfro is set to join the ranks of Montanans fully vaccinated against the coronavirus, the effort to vaccinate Yellowstone County has had a road bump in recent weeks.
But yeah, vaccinations have really slowed down.
Yellowstone County Public Health Officer John Felton identifies three main attitudes toward the vaccine: those eager to get their shot, the hesitant, and the resistant. Felton says that last group is larger than health officials had anticipated.
We thought we would continue to see some more increase in vaccine as the hesitant folks work through, but really there's a lot of very resistant folks out there.
The Montana State COVID-19 tracking website lists 47% of eligible Montanans as fully vaccinated. Rates in Yellowstone County aren't much lower at 45%, but a divide emerges when compared to other populous areas. Missoula County sits at 60% fully vaccinated and Gallatin County at 54%. And the number of vaccines administered in Yellowstone County has trended downward for weeks. 20-year-old Billings worker Trent Shoup has his own reasons for holding out on the shot.
They're talking about getting it out in this sort of short time frame. And like there's lots of risks with that, but there could also be benefits if it does work out. And so I was just kind of like, I'm just going to sit on the fence with this one.
Shoup spent time in the Army and says he's not anti-vaccine, adding he gets his flu shot every year. He says a few more dominoes need to fall for him to get in line for his COVID-19 doses.
One I would say for sure is FDA approval, because it's not FDA approved yet. But as it gets more fine-tuned and they figure out the right mixture or whatever it is, then maybe I'll consider it. But
health officials say primary care providers like Dr. Brad Fuller are increasingly important as trusted messengers, convincing people the shot is safe and effective.
First of all, I tell my patients I'm not a 99.9% believer in the vaccine. I'm a 100% believer in the vaccine.
Fuller says he's had success in convincing patients to get their shot, sometimes citing his own experience getting vaccinated.
I'll even say I got the vaccine, these were my side effects, this is what to expect, and just try to keep things honest with them.
For Aurelia Renfro, choosing to get her shot was a decision she says required prayer and patience.
I'm free now. I can go right on a plane, go anywhere because I'm vaccinated.
A message health officials hope takes root as the mission to vaccinate Yellowstone County forges on. Reporting in Billings, I'm Austin Amistoy for MTN News.
Riverstone Health is rolling out its next slate of community COVID-19 vaccine clinics for July. Locations include Castle Rock Park and Rimrock Mall in Billings, as well as Huntley Project Schools and Lockwood Middle School. You can visit Riverstone Health's COVID-19 website for the full list of dates and locations. Well, daily coronavirus cases are rising across much of the U.S. The majority of those are the highly contagious Delta variant. As health officials continue to press more Americans to get vaccinated, talks are poised to ramp up this week on whether some fully vaccinated people should get a third shot. Here's Laura Podesta.
COVID infection rates have risen this past week in more than 36 states. New cases are up by more than 60% over the past week. Less than half the country is fully vaccinated, and the highly infectious Delta strain now makes up more than half of cases.
The numbers don't lie. In those states where you have a low degree of vaccination, that's where we're seeing surges of infection, which are followed by surges in hospitalization, which will ultimately lead to increases in deaths.
As the nationwide push for vaccinations continues, Pfizer says it will meet with federal health officials as soon as today to discuss a third booster shot for those already fully vaccinated. The company is seeking emergency FDA authorization. Some studies suggest the vaccine's efficacy wanes over time, and the pharmaceutical giant says a booster could up a person's antibodies 5 to 10-fold.
I would suspect that if there is a recommendation on providing boosters, it's going to be for a select portion of the population, perhaps people who are older, who are more than 7 or 8 months from completing their original vaccinations.
On Sunday, Israel announced that it would begin offering a third dose of Pfizer's vaccine to individuals with weak immune systems. It's still weighing whether the booster will be made available to the general public. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Meanwhile, rent prices are soaring across the nation. Prices are up more than 7% so far this year, which is 3 times higher than usual. Single-family homes and apartments in smaller cities with low inventory are in the highest demand. More than a dozen cities showed an increase in rent prices of more than 10% in the last year. Experts say the trend could continue due to a surging housing market that is forcing more people to consider renting a home rather than buying one. Today, President Biden will meet with city and law enforcement leaders from across the country to talk about the surge in violent crime. Shootings and killings have surged nationwide as the country reopens from the pandemic. The president recently announced plans to try and stop violent crime. That includes more funding to cities that need more officers. He's also expected to discuss the work federal law enforcement is doing to stop the flow of illegal guns and a new zero-tolerance policy for dealers who sell guns illegally. And later this week, President Biden will meet with German Chancellor Angela Merkel to discuss a wide range of issues. The visit could be Merkel's last to Washington, D.C. She promised to step down after Germany's September elections. The two leaders are expected to discuss the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan, the rise in cyber attacks, the pandemic, and trade issues. This will only be the third time a world leader will meet with President Biden in Washington since he took office. We've been following the infrastructure debate closely, and it's going to intensify this week with Congress returning from their July 4th recess. Reporter Joe St. George walks us through how the legislation would be funded, what's at stake for communities, and why passing this into law has become so complicated.
Understanding the infrastructure debate in Congress can be a bit confusing, and that's why we're going for a drive. First stop, President Biden and moderate Democrats and Republicans. They want a bipartisan deal creating $579 billion in new infrastructure spending. For the moment, they think they have the votes to pass this into law. Next stop, conservative leadership. They don't want to raise taxes or spend much more than what's in the bipartisan deal, and some won't vote for the bipartisan deal at all. The final stop, progressive Democrats. They want an additional multi-trillion-dollar spending bill to create programs left out of the bipartisan deal. Major action on infrastructure is expected this week as Congress returns from its July 4th recess. To borrow another transportation analogy, think of this debate as two trains attempting to leave the station at the exact same time. The bipartisan deal is on train number 1. This legislation addresses roads, bridges, trains, and broadband, traditional infrastructure projects. The progressive spending bill is on train number 2. This legislation will address education and child care costs. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already said the bipartisan deal, train number 1, doesn't make it to the White House unless train number 2, the separate spending bill, is moving through Congress as well. The bipartisan deal includes 0 increases in taxes. If no taxes are being raised to pay for this infrastructure plan, where is all this infrastructure money coming from? As far as the bipartisan deal goes, Congress is getting a bit creative. For instance, their plan includes cutting $70 billion from the nation's unemployment benefit program, although lawmakers say it won't impact people out of work. They want to redirect $80 billion in COVID relief funds to fund infrastructure, as well as tell the FCC to generate $65 billion by auctioning off 5G airwave access. Not to mention, Democrat and Republican negotiators want the IRS to audit more Americans. In fact, Congress plans on hiring new investigators to collect $140 billion in taxes the federal government believes they are entitled to. One thing you should know, everything remains fluid on Capitol Hill as this complicated and very large infrastructure debate is expected to receive its first votes in the coming weeks. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
And in other news, many hospitals are not meeting a new rule requiring them to post prices online that's easy for people to find and read. The hospital price transparency rule took effect in January. It's an effort to better inform consumers and allow them to choose a different hospital to receive care if it's cheaper. Experts say the punishment might not be severe enough to make hospitals want to share their prices. Hospitals face a $300 per day penalty. Another reason hospitals have been slow to follow this rule is the difficulty in setting up readable pricing systems. Prices can be different for different patients and at different hospitals.